Welcome to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to awaken our divine nature and explore the provocative inner force compelling us toward our fullest potential. If you've achieved external success but feel a deeper calling, if you're tired of dimming your light to fit in, and you know there's a more powerful way to live and lead and love, you're in the right place. Host Donna Bond is a best-selling author, modern-day high priestess, and catalyst for personal transformation. Together, we're birthing a new paradigm of loving leadership, integrating our humanity with divine wisdom as our individual awakening serves collective evolution. Here's your host of Spiritual Ambition, Donna Bond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in, welcome back. Welcome if you're scrolling. Welcome back to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to remember our divine nature. I'm Donna Bond, I'm your host, and today we are going to talk about the most powerful healing practice there is, opening your heart. I have a guest today who is very special to me, Dr. Jesse Hanson. He's a clinical psychologist, a somatic healing pioneer, the creator of the Hanson Healing Method. He's also the host of the groundbreaking television series Lead with Heart on Now Media Television. Jesse has spent over 20 years bridging neuroscience and ancient wisdom, and our conversation with him today is absolutely going to be an opening invitation to open your heart. I really want to invite us into this paradigm shift that, when we get on a healing journey, it's not about fixing ourselves. It's about coming home to the truth of who you really are. And I really see our entire life as a healing journey, one that really can only happen through the heart. So our spiritual truth reminder today is that all of humanity is on what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. This is where our hero or heroine, in other words, you, leaves your normal life, faces difficulty and trials in an unknown world, and returns home forever changed. Every human on the planet is given an invitation, and it's through their own personal trials and challenges that we have the opportunity to return home to the recognition of our true nature as the essence of love. So to do this, we must allow our difficulties to be the keys to open our closed hearts. And our guest today, Dr. Jesse Hanson, is definitely going to help us do that. Welcome in, everyone. Hello to those of you who are just coming online with us. Jennifer McCormick, welcome back. It's so great to have you here. All right, well, you know the drill. We're going to start with an attunement. So I want to invite you wherever you are to just close your eyes and find your breath. And just sending a blessing of gratitude to your physical body. Take a deep inhalation. And just let go. Letting go of anything that's no longer serving you. Letting go of anything you are not. And in this moment, knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. Infinite universe. We call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, or imbalance, any constriction, contraction, any resistance, stale storylines, limiting beliefs, old ideas that are no longer serving us, any energy or vibrational frequency that is vibrating at anything less than the frequency of divine loving, that may be residing anywhere in our consciousness. We ask that all of that just now be lifted and transmuted, taken to the highest realms of light and sound, and dispersed back into the nothingness, into the space. We ask to be flooded with grace and light and peace, with joy and compassion, with acceptance and allowing. We acknowledge and we welcome only those divine beings of light who love each one of us unconditionally, who work for the divine plan and who work for the light. We welcome only you into our sacred space here today. We ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart that will resonate most profoundly with each individual here for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. We are grateful and we say thank you. So be it. Just bringing your attention back to the room. Welcome in. If you're just tuning in with us today, I'm so excited. We are going to be speaking with Dr. Jessie Hanson, who is a clinical psychologist, a somatic healing pioneer, and the host of the television series called Lead with Heart. You know, the soul starter question for reflection that I want to pose to you today is, what is one area in your life where you could open your heart just a little bit more? Maybe this is with, I don't know, an annoying neighbor that you have that's doing something that's getting you fired up. Or maybe it's with a coworker that you just can't seem to see eye to eye with. Or maybe it's even with a beloved family member who did something that you perceived as hurtful. Whatever it is, it's all an invitation for our growth and for us to open our heart. So that's my question that you can sit with today throughout our show. What is one area in your life where you could open your heart just a little bit more? So we always start with sending love and light around the globe to those who need it most with our sacred circle of light. So if there's anybody that you know of who could really use our prayers, our good intentions, our thoughts of upliftment, you're invited to put their name in the chat if that feels aligned for you, or you can visit spiritualambition.sacredlight.com and you can submit their name and we will hold them in our sacred container. Today, we are sending the light out to Mandy, to Beth, to Betty, to Bob, to Celia, to Dawn, to Katie, and to Mina. So we just take that moment and we stream that beautiful energy of loving from our hearts around the globe to reach each of these individuals. Well, so many high-achieving women that I have supported over the years, they get on their healing journey, and the first thing that they try to do is think their way out of their pain by analyzing it or managing it or optimizing it, only to discover that those same patterns resurface again and again, no matter how many times we visit them. We're sending love out to Harley. Thank you, Jennifer. Yes. Today, we're going to get a deeper understanding of why the mind can't heal what the heart hasn't opened to, and why maybe the patterns that you have been challenged with, they're not evidence that you're wounded, but rather they are proof that you're human. So Dr. Jessie Hanson holds a PhD in somatic psychology and an MA in clinical psychology. He has spent over 20 years training with holistic and shamanic teachers, exploring the connection between mind and body and its impact on natural healing. He's the co-founder and clinical director at Atman Resorts and Retreats, and he's the co-founder and clinical director of mentalhealth.com. So if you need support and you are looking for a great resource, you can go to mentalhealth.com and find all kinds of information to support you. Jesse is also a clinical advisor at Holos Global, and he guides the integration of trauma reprocessing, mindfulness, and ceremonial practice to bring modern neuroscience together with ancient wisdom. He also appeared on the A&E television series for 4 consecutive seasons as the interventionist on the show called Intervention. Today, Jesse has his own show on Now Media Television, which is called Lead with Heart. And it's a groundbreaking series exploring the inner landscape of success. It's his take on a more human approach to leadership that is rooted not in strategy, but in presence, in awareness, and in the wisdom of the body. His private practice is Hanson Healing, and it's guided by his core philosophy: we are the medicine. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Jesse Hanson to Spiritual Ambition today.
Hello, Donna. Wow, thank you so much for that very kind invitation and opening. I'm so grateful to be here. And I loved the first few minutes. I was getting tingles throughout my body as you were opening the love light portal there. So I feel happy to be here.
Jesse, I'm so grateful to have had my path cross with yours. And we're gonna give people a little taste of what that was all about without giving it away. You know, if they want to see the real good, so they're gonna have to go watch Lead with Heart. But you know, my first question for you is: it's such a big undertaking, right? To pursue a clinical degree in psychology, to get a PhD. You put yourself through school, you got this PhD, but my sense is that wasn't quite enough for you. And that is how you began to bring in these ancient wisdom practices into the work that you do today. Give us a little bit of insight into how those two separate worlds, seemingly separate worlds, intersected, which, you know, as a spiritual psychologist, I love it, right? You know, you and I have so many beautiful parallels. Share with us, how did it happen?
Thank you. I'm going to answer with a personal share and a little bit of a quick story. Is that while that is the common model, which you just said, of like going to get the academic degree and going through all of the clinical training, only to realize, wow, actually, a lot of that doesn't actually work that well, especially with trauma. And in a nutshell, it's also heady, and it's all figuring out versus being shown or allowing. And so that is the common path. And I've seen that in my colleagues. I feel so blessed, Donna. My path is very different because I had some very deep, hard learning lessons in my early 20s that took me into substance abuse, that took me into death of my father, my ex-wife, adultery. There was a lot of tough hits that I took in my early 20s. And I'm so, obviously in the time wasn't, but now I am so grateful for them and long have been, that put me on my spiritual path. And that's when I was introduced to ancient wisdom. I was actually guided by a friend to go to a Temescal sweat lodge in Compton, of all places. And if listeners don't know Compton, well, not only California, but Compton is the ghetto. Compton is South Central. Compton is where people with this skin tone aren't supposed to go for fear of being shot or mugged. And of course, I fearlessly went down there and I studied for almost a decade with, bless her heart, Srinath Devi Mataji, one of my first teachers, Chief White Eagle. She helped me so much, and so much more than my PhD did. Yet they both have their place. I'll circle back to that. So ironically, I have a very unique and different path than most of my colleagues and peers in the academic and clinical world. I went the opposite direction. I learned and got the blessings of the ancient wisdom and the somatics and the embodiment first. And it was actually walking that path in Southern California, Venice Beach, where I was a holistic health practitioner, body worker, yoga, all of the things you would expect out of Southern California. And lo and behold, I was having so many clients going into what now Dr. Jesse understands are called dissociative states of consciousness, where we're basically, having younger traumatized parts come out and start talking, grown men and women talking like children, and things that were way beyond my scope of practice. That's what spawned the realization that even though the ancient wisdom had a lot, and there was a lot of blessings in that, we're not living in a time anymore where we are hunter-gatherers, nature people. We are living in a time where we are digibots, where we are all collectively addicted to technology now. And that's not our original source codes that God gave us. And that's not how we were actually programmed or created. And so I realized that while that has its place, there's a lot of other things happening now. And it was that feeling of, what do I do? What do I do for these people? I know I'm doing something well. I know they feel safe because they're opening, but what do I do? That's how I started to become Dr. Jesse. That's when the same friend that nudged me towards sweat lodges roughly 4 or 5 years later, to bless his heart. And then he said, well, guess what? You're now ready to go to clinical training, and you're going to, if you wish, go get your doctorate. And so that is how it happened for me. And to come back now to your question of how do they weave, this is my answer, is that as I started sitting these courses as 28 years young, after about a decade, I guess at that point, about 7 or 8 years in my spiritual practice, and literally, Donna, you would not have recognized, my hair was down to my butt. I refused to wear shoes. I refused to wear shirts. I was like in it, and all of a sudden I have to wear a shirt because I'm going to grad school. So I do. I think I got away with shoelessness still in grad school. But point is, I was sitting in class and I was just like, hallelujah, praise be. Finally, here is some science, and specifically neuroscience and quantum physics. These were the two sciences that I was introduced to early on in school that I said, oh my goodness, guess what? Here's actually some left brain scientific language that can help me understand and, best of all, explain all of these wild mystical experiences I had been having for the last, whatever it was, 8 years roughly. So that was the light bulb that just lit me up. I was like, oh my goodness, not only I was geeking out on the understanding, but I was starting to realize finally all the people who were haters and called me woo-woo and called me weird and called me all the spiritual downplayed names that we get. I was like, oh my gosh, I have the perfect sword and shield now to be able to help people understand, and not as a fight, but as a peaceful warrior to say, actually, the ancient peoples had it spot on. We are the ones that are lost. We are the ones that are confused. We're the ones that are stuck in our head, right?
Jesse, I love what you're sharing. I also just want to make a point that, I'm hearing this, the hero's journey, right? As we all make, but people calling you woo-woo and you maybe feeling insecure that you weren't able to really articulate these ideas in the way in which you needed to in a way that the world could hear them, which is what drove this intersection and this piece of the clinical piece of it to come together with all these ancient modalities. And, having had my own experience with you, you carry just such a beautiful shamanic presence and shamanic energy. Yeah. Which we're going to talk even more about because it really is palpable.
I'm going to jump in on that as your breath. The shamanic path, I love that. I respect it. I've come to differentiate so many times, but what does it mean to be a shaman? And I don't claim to be a shaman. I am just Jesse. I'm human. I walk with what I walk with. And yet the simplest way to break it down, and this was that distinction that was happening for me in my late 20s, early 30s, as I started to study both worlds, was that the main thing I realized, whether it was shamanic from this tribe or this continent or that continent, there was a framework of consciousness and a framework of healing that is simplified by saying the way out of this is through it.
Yes.
And what I was being trained and programmed and everything else in the modern world and the American world and in the academic world was the way out of this is around it. Take some cyclopharm pills, get a surgery, brush it under the rug, go shopping, watch Netflix, whatever. That's to me what is the key upgrade in consciousness, is where we are all, I say this as a generalization of our current mainstream consciousness that is, kind of addicted to something out there is going to fix me. That's the key. That's the hacking of the matrix, if you will, is to shift your consciousness from, it's not someone or something out there that's going to fix me, some pill, some anything. The way out is through. And the way through is right here. This is the portal. This is the true healing portal. Of course, all of the rest of the body matters. And yet our heart is like the central processor of healing, So I love that you brought up that word. I've intentionally kind of steered away from it because people have projections and such, but it is the key.
We're going to talk about it right now because I want to ask you to go into this more deeply. And I know, we're going to get to the body, but it's this very long walk that people have to make from here to here. And, even just hearing about this, people might feel the resistance go up and they're bracing themselves, or they perceive it as too woo-woo, and maybe they're going to turn it off. Tell us about this portal. Tell us about this entryway. Help us understand. This isn't like a modality. This is like necessary, right? The only way out is through.
Facing the shadows, facing our own shadows, facing the collective shadows is one of the ways to say what is in this portal. Is this the way through? And so much of what we are, and there is this phenomenon that is called spiritual bypass, and I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar with this, and I believe that I maybe even subscribe to that unconsciously for a little while, where it's basically saying, okay, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to do everything right and pure, and I'll get there. And yet what I learned from my ancient teachers and what I learned from my clinical teachers is we have to process the traumas. We have to go into the shadows to really get through this portal. And it is our hearts. It is our love, our compassion for ourselves and others. That's the missing ingredient. That's usually the experience that wasn't put in when the traumas happened, is that was missing. And so that's why to me, the heart is so valuable that way on the spiritual level. And just a bit more, a lot of neuroscience is actually medical. It's very aligned with doctors and MDs, and it's that understanding the body, understanding that the heart is actually an organ and it's a muscle, and it's such an important part of us, so much so that if it's not operating, the entire whole system shuts down. There's not too many other muscles and organs in the body that are at the core of all of it. We can lose a kidney, we can have a stomach issue, but if the heart goes, that is our existence in the body. So I feel like that is why, another reason why it is such a powerful portal.
And we know through the work of heart math that the heart has a frequency, it has a resonance. And in the work that I do with my clients, I'm helping them understand that it's this resonance, this frequency that is our true essence, it's our true nature. And all of the trauma and the shadows are, this isn't technically correct, right? The way I'm going to say it, but it's essentially blocking, preventing our true essence from shining out into the world. It's preventing our true presence from just being here right now, right? And this is another underscore of why we can't go around it. We can't think our way to it. We must go through it.
With feelings, with emotions. And I would support you and say that actually it's pretty technically true, even to the level of, one of the other things I'm fascinated with is that the nervous system, we think neuropsychology, we think nervous system, but really it's also our neuromuscular system and frequencies, to your point. And so when you said blocking, that's a great word, because if I've got unprocessed trauma, and even if it's not acute physical sexual trauma, but it's developmental emotional trauma, the abandonment wound, the rejection wound, there's tons of others we could list up, but is that, guess what? I'm going to role model a little bit in my own body. If this becomes my posture, And then over years, this becomes my posture. And I call it slumping or plopping, guess what? That is not just spiritual. That is true physical, technical measurement of neuromuscular tension equaling a block that stops the pure frequency of our heart from emanating as powerfully as it can. And we know this because of heart math and Korean photography and other approaches that show we can actually measure the electromagnetic field off the human body now quite easily. And
Yes.
Sure enough, I've seen it. I've tested myself. I've seen it in others. It's true. It's like when the neuromuscular tensions are there, the blocks are there, the heart frequency is not as strong. And therefore the consciousness of that human is such that to say, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm lonely, I don't know how to let love in. Well, of course, if you're going to hold your body like this all the time, it's literally blocking. So I am a huge advocate in a lot of the work I do with my clients, though I do a lot of psychological work. I do a lot of body-based work, and it's so amazing to watch. Even I host a lot of like 3-4 day deep dives, private experiences, and in as short as 2 or 3 days, see a human completely shapeshift and come into their true form. And so this is where I want to draw the line between, because I do not want to appear judgmental or hierarchical in any way. I like to keep it to also the facts, which is that we are bioenergetic beings. And so when you can see someone, I call it shape-shifting, and all of a sudden they're standing taller, they're open, they're happy, their energy shifts, their mood shifts, it's all measurable. And it lines up with physics, quantum physics, neuroscience, medical science. All the sciences support that when we learn how to, and the proper language of this called psychostructural integration, to realize that every shift in my psyche needs a shift in my structure to really become embodied and not just be something cool that I thought, or I journaled, or I affirmed, or I whatever kind of bypassed a bit through my mind. I have to realize if I really want to open my heart, I got to look at how I'm wearing my shoulder girdle. I got to look at how my hips are. I got to look at how my feet are. Are they balanced? Are they imbalanced? Right? So it goes deep. I'm gonna stop my own ramble now, but just to say I love this topic, and I love the idea that you brought it up, that realizing, and the beauty is, though I'm drawing out some critique here, the beauty is if we really wake up to this, it's empowering as heaven, because all of a sudden it's realizing, well, I accidentally did this because I didn't get my needs met when I was a kid, or my marriage, or whatever. But oh my gosh, if I'm willing to do the work and open my heart, like you said, start with little ways to open our heart. The physical structural shift will support the shift in consciousness. And if we feed both, then we've got something extra special and expedited, quickening.
Yes. Well, yeah. I am a living testament to everything that you are sharing. And your television show on Now Media Network is called Lead with Heart. And when I had the opportunity to be a guest on your show, I revealed something that was very traumatic about my childhood, that was very fresh, that I had just learned about. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, about me being on your show. And if anybody wants to learn a little bit about my childhood wounding, you can head over to hansonhealing.com and watch Lead with Heart, and you can see the whole episode. But here's the point that I want to make that is connected to what you are sharing. After I so vulnerably shared on Lead with Heart with Jesse, I then scheduled a session with him to do some of my own somatic release work around rage that really needed to be freed in my vessel. And what happened to me, and Jesse, I've written about this, and I look forward to the day that I can share the writing with you around it. But I had this really big awareness, because over the course of this 90 minutes that you worked with me, I went through a structural change in my physicality, where in the beginning, when all of this trauma was coming up and we were working with it and feeling through it, I was hunched over and my shoulders were dropped and my head was down. in the victim stance, right? In the victim stance. But as we worked together and I began to regain my power, there's no other way to say it, right? As I had this reclamation of power, my spine became erect. I mean, erect. And I was grounded and anchored and in my sovereignty in such an incredible way. And as I was writing about this, I thought I was leading with heart, right? Like it was just such a beautiful illustration of who you are in the world, the type of process that you are guiding people through, and really the end result of what you are delivering is actually physically, somatically, structurally, and emotionally happening.
Thank you, Donna. Vulnerability is a superpower. Thanks for owning all that. And yeah, thank you for stepping up to do the work. I have another saying, say, when you work, I work, we work. Even right now, just talking about it, I feel myself getting a little bit leaky of happy tears, of just the recognition, yes, but really just the witnessing of you and knowing that, you are a mirror for all of us and anyone that's listening too, then realize we all have stuff, not myself included. I've been working on myself 25 years and I'm never going to stop till I transition, and probably not then either. And so I just first want to just acknowledge not only your willingness to name all that, but just the courage to step up and do that work and to receive the support, and I will testify, your spine, you still are, you were especially fierce and strong that day, and it's with you now, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really was. Transformation, right? It was a transformational experience in 90 minutes on so many different levels of my consciousness. So I want to address something that you just said. I think sometimes perhaps people are under the impression that, we're going to do all this work. We're going to arrive at some grand destination in the sky. We're going to be healed and experience nirvana. But you and I both know, given the level of the work that we've done, given the work that we've done with so many clients, that this is really a fallacy. And we can fall into this misunderstanding that we're trying to fix ourselves. When this really, I know for myself, and this is what I'm making an inquiry to you about, for myself, healing is really part of my lifestyle, because these new blocks are going to surface to support my evolution. And so as those blocks come up, we can work with them. And that's really doing the healing. So just say a little bit about, how do we fall into this trap of the self-judgment where, I'm broken and I got to fix myself, and, how that's not really serving the process. And it's not true.
Beautifully said. I want to loop in a question I saw fly up from Labyrinthian Criterion, I believe was the name. But is that, yes, exactly. There it is. I saw that. That's a great question. Short answer is no, of course they're not conscious of it. Very few people consciously want to become smaller or less healthy. Most of the time we consciously want to heal, and yet we are either not educated in true healing. We're given the way through this is around it model, which is the cultural program of mainstream North America and civilized modern world thinking. So, to answer that guest question really quick, just to say no, it's primarily unconscious. And that's what I mean when I talk about awakening. Doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean being spiritually blissed out every second. It simply means stop wearing the blinders. Awaken means become conscious of not only our thoughts, but our body and the correlation between our thoughts and our bodies, our feelings and our bodies. And so that's what happened that day, is I was just extra conscious with you about tracking how you were holding what you were holding. And by giving you those guidances that you took, you went right through it and you shapeshifted in front of my eyes. And so beautiful. So to come back to your question more specifically, Donna, I would say that the biggest thing that I think is a constant influencer that more of us are awakening to it is the mainstream programming that we are innately broken and we need something outside of us to fix it. And we need to have fear of our corporeal existence, and we need to try to, use all these medical things and supplement things and biohacking things, which none of which I am against. They all have their part, and I'm not against any of them. I am against the consciousness that says that will fix me. Let me just pay that money. Let me just go through that procedure or whatever, versus the consciousness that says, wow, hey, these things may be able to support me in remembering that I am the medicine. Donna is the medicine. Labyrinthine Criterion, Jen McCormick, all the people there today, we are the medicine, which means that's the shift, Donna. That's the shift, is really becoming more conscious that we don't have to give our power away in that way. And so I feel like, with specifically, you mentioned shaming, judging, again, that is a part of the programming in the culture that's not only, get me to fix you, but something's innately wrong with you or you're broken. Yeah. That's shame. That's what shame is. And then the other major variable that probably happened long before those cultural programs is, you guessed it, we know it, childhood. Maybe it's Catholicism, maybe it's dad, maybe it's the babysitter, maybe it's the uncle. Almost every one of us have some encounter with judgmental, shaming influences, because we talk now. I am really loving the word source codes lately. I love it. What I mean by that is the original true imprints, like you said earlier, Donna. When I can get back to really opening my heart, it's not that that's better than, it's more preferred, it's more comfortable, it's more enjoyable, but it's not necessarily better. It's simply, if you were to look, I would say the Greeks had it so wise. How did they depict gods and goddesses? They were really beautiful humans, almost to say, wow, when the human being learns how to live in their body, they create more divinity. They were allowed to channel more of the divine energy through us. When our body is holding all sorts of contractions and constrictions, even if we want to, even if we're thinking it, the vessel of the body won't always allow it. Not because it doesn't want to or it can't, but because of contraction patterns. And that's what happens when we get underneath shame. My best teacher taught me shame as a blanket. And so we go under the blanket and we don't want to be seen and we don't want people to see under there. So we've had so many exercises where literally we've taken blankets off of people. But point is, Donna, no, it's imprinting from, let me be Dr. Jesse for a moment. It would be called neural imprinting. I've been imprinted with this idea that I'm not good enough. I didn't get enough grades. I didn't, whatever, mom or dad says this, that 1,000 times. And guess what? We just start to rerun the app. We start to rerun the program. And so often when I'm working with people with judge or shit, like, oh, I just judge myself so much, I'm my own worst critic. Okay, you're actually not. Someone was, and we're going to find out who that was. And it's usually mom or dad, or mom and or dad. And so as I'm training or coaching people to push back against that suppressing energy, it is to realize, hey, and even for myself, I practice what I preach, and the same, but it's like, I love you, mom, but back the F up. Like, I am not running that app anymore. You know what? Like, it's okay. And then when you start to realize you're talking to your mom, your dad, your pastor, whoever, instead of you realize this isn't actually me. This is just a malware. This is just a program that I accidentally, unconsciously downloaded and or was forced downloaded upon me. And then it's a game changer. And it's not done after that. There's some techniques, there's some practices that finalize it. And that awareness, that awakening is where everything shifts.
So say a little bit about, we don't actually want to tell our mothers to back up, right? Or do we?
To each their own, Donna. No, I would say no. I don't ever encourage people to go out and have acts of violence or mean words toward their parents. However, oftentimes after some deeper work like this is done, I will support or encourage having a conscious conversation about it if the parent A is still alive and B is at least moderately open to any notion of consciousness or conversation. Yeah. that being said, but I know where you're going with your question, and you're right to name that long before there's any actual conversation with the earth incarnation of that human, there's a lot of work on the spiritual plane, there's a lot of work on the energetic plane, and to the somatic work, there's actually often the true act of pushing through the body. Sometimes it's arms, sometimes it's legs, sometimes it's jaw. We all have our little pockets where we hold our stuff. It is that actual physical act of pushing mixed with consciousness, words, thoughts, visions, images, whatever gets mixed into the recipe, that really creates the next level of shifts. Whereas so often, even though I have burned many letters, I have burned things, fire ceremonies, I love that. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's not enough, because it doesn't get deep into the neuromuscular system, right? The throwing of something in the fire, at least then I'm using my arm, I'm using an act of release, but that's not the same as truly saying enough's enough. I don't need to play small anymore. I don't want this shaming to define me anymore. And I will literally push it. And the most beautiful part of this goes back to 28-year-old Jesse geeking out on, oh my gosh, there's science that can explain this, is that quantum mechanics explains it quite easily. It's our electromagnetic field. And if we have a shame, judgmental part of self that's been downloaded from a past other human, it is literally in our auric field. It is in our electromagnetic field 24/7. But most humans don't choose to track that or care or know. And yet once we realize that, that's why all this, the mixture of the ancient wisdom, the spiritual wisdom with the science is so powerful, because it helps our modern day minds understand, oh my gosh, I am doing the work, right? This is as silly as it sounds, woo-woo as it is, whatever, to realize, wow, I'm actually moving electromagnetic energy in a new way around me that changes how I show up in my life.
Yes, and these things that we hold in our field act as magnetizers to the experiences that life is going to serve up for us.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse, so that we can work through whatever is there to be worked through. And I think that's what my next book is going to be about, because I had some stuff in my field from when I was 22, right after my father died. And I know your father died at around 23, which I wanted to ask you about. But without going off the cliff into that, my point is this unfinished business, this unresolved material that wasn't even conscious, right? It wasn't even conscious, but it was there. And so my point is, it's such a better position to go into these things with our eyes open and to go into these things voluntarily, to be able to work with a therapist, a facilitator, a coach, a healer, to excavate the things that are preventing us from standing forward in our authentic power with our open hearts.
Yeah, it's so well said. And but if I'd known, I forgot that both of us lost our fathers around the same time. I didn't know that. Yeah, my father, bless his heart, he was not that open. He was not, he was a byproduct of many of my age dads for a number of generations were kind of programmed in a whole different way. And so his the way, his lifestyle, his death, and even in my book, I say my dad's death was my true birth. And it was, I did love him a lot. And there was something in his passing that the grief, as well as the other saying, the king is dead, long live the king, really, forced me to grow up relatively young, not super young, but youngish. And I feel like all of that stuff is also in our electromagnetic field. And you said something earlier, Donna, I want to circle back to quickly on that notion, as you said, these new blocks are coming up. And I would say, unless there's been a recent major trauma, most of the blocks are already always there. We're just growing, we're shifting, we're starting to be willing to see them, even
Yes.
with you in the rage piece, right? Like that was there. Your conscious mind didn't know it. But once your conscious mind knew it, then you were able to track it and realize and move through that block.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your show, Lead with Heart. And, I thought that I was going for like a regular podcast interview. That's the truth. And what happened was, because of the space that you hold, and, as I was writing about this, like, transformation happens because of the container that is created, and we set the conditions so that people can have their own individual transformation. But as I was reflecting on what happened on your show, I was like, Jesse is the container. Like, he's the container. And I think that just speaks to the quality of your consciousness and your level of presence and your intention for Lead with Heart, and your intention for the process that you're guiding people through on that show. So, I'm not going to give away what happened with me, because if people want to see that, they can go watch Lead with Heart. But tell us about how Lead with Heart came to be, this approach that you're taking with guiding people through an actual process is quite unique.
Yeah. Thank you for that reflection. And there's so much wisdom in what you just said about the anchoring of the space and the experience of safety, creating transformation far more than any clinical technique or even any ceremonial element. It's the presence and quality of anchoring that's in the space that does bring forth transformation. I've seen that, and that is actually one of the reasons I chose to draw this shirt today. It's an anchor, and it's about anchoring. It's also I hardly ever, I've lived in California, Costa Rica. I very rarely even wear a shirt, but this is the one shirt that I've bought for myself in like 10 years. Everything else has been gifted by either a mom or a partner or whatever. But it was like, this shirt just spoke to me, and I got it here in Costa Rica. Go figure. It was like the one cool shirt I found here. And I love it because this color means a lot to me. This is a very grounding earth color. And this notion of anchor is that sorry, I was getting a little echo. I need to refocus. Thank you. Is that I spent so long pursuing academia, holistic health practitioner, so much money and time on school, and I'm so grateful I did it. I don't regret it. And it wasn't until I really realized, and this is from the clinical and quantum, relational container, the group field, it wasn't just me anchoring it, Donna, it was you as well. It was you as well. It was your quality of self-safety, your quality of trust, your quality of not just trusting me, but trusting Creator, that it was okay to just let go. And so, that I just love that you bring that up. And I want to say, now 25 years in the field and holding all the credentials I hold, what really matters most to me is the quality of presence. And thank you for the cool shirt comment, the quality of presence. And also something that I'm really excited about as my next level of offering is moving more and more. I've done this before, I'm bringing it back, but into the group field. And that I've been getting these downloads that learning how to anchor the space and transfer that frequency through a group, large or small, the relational field is actually the most potent healer, far more than any individual human or, again, plant ceremony or anything else like that. It is the relational field. And the ancient ones knew this. They knew it so much better than us. And that's why everything that is happening in North America right now and in the developed world is all based around isolation, individuation, and basically killing the group field, making it so that we all separate from each other because we are stronger together. And I have seen such magical things, Donna, over my years, in both things I've guided as well as things I've been guided into, my teachers, where it's palpable in the room, and the experiences that are happening, the levels of transformation are so next level, not because I am some perfect guru, but because I have gotten very good at anchoring the space and helping to transfer a certain frequency that when the group field takes it, magic happens beyond what we can ever do on our own. And so I feel like that is what happened that day for us. Yes, I own that I anchored it, and I own that you really stepped into it, and love our Tico brothers, who, even my producers who
Yeah,
are there,
we're
they
holding
hold the
space.
field, they hold the space too, right? So that's the to me the most important part. For fun, I will answer the question you asked me about the show Lead with Heart. I long worked with people suffering from substance abuse, often labeled addicts. I don't like that label. I just say they are humans who have unprocessed trauma, who are trying to escape their pain. That was my niche for a long time. And then I worked at Passages Malibu. And so I was introduced to working with top level leaders and celebrities and all these like high profile people. And that made me realize, wow, they're human too. And they need love and support. And if I can wake up just one leader, I wake up thousands. That's fascinating, right? Maybe even more. And so that is the shift I've had in the last about 7 to 10 years of my career path. Is I still do support people in the substance abuse healing world, recovery often called. And yet really my passion right now is working with leaders. And so that's how it happened. And one thing in my life was crumbling at the time when Now Media reached out to me in the middle, out of nowhere, and do you want to do this? And I took the call and got curious. And then they said, well, whatever, we'll figure out the name of the show later. And I was like, Lead with Heart. It just came, boom, right away. It's just the second they said, we'll figure out the name later, I was like, Lead with Heart. And then the producer was like, yes, that's awesome, let's go with it. And that's how it happened. But that is, to me, what matters so much, is that when we can wake up one leader, we wake up so many more people. And it blesses the leader's life too, because instead of running on burnout and stress and all this hyper cerebral, left brain, tension driven existence, they still know how to do all that and execute from a strategic and profit driven level. And yet they start to become more human again. And then their lives get blessed, and they get happier, and they get a higher quality of life, and their relationships heal. So guess what? Everyone in their company feels that, and everyone they touch. And I also, last quick thing I'll say, and it's very important to me, Donna, is that in my show, I say this often: leaders are not just corporate execs. Leaders are mothers. Leaders are fathers. Leaders are healers. Leaders are pastors, religious leads, community leads. And I'm really working to promote leadership is a phenomenon. It's not a person. It's a phenomenon, and we all have it in us somewhere to lead. And it's different for each person. And yet unlocking that's what I ultimately want from the show, is to get people thinking deeper and feeling deeper.
I have a quote. I say, leadership is a self-appointed position. And it really is the truth. I know you are in the process of getting out in the world a beautiful offering for men. And boy, when I read that, I just got flooded with men that I want to be able to share that with, because I mean, talk about the relational field and calling in exceptional men into the relational field. Can you share a little bit about what that is, what that looks like?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity, Donna. I just named the relational field piece and the group wisdom and the collective wisdom. And I'm also aware from my indigenous studies that it was very common practice that multiple, usually 12 chiefs of neighboring lands would sit together in ceremony in the sweat lodge, whatever it was, and listen for the collective wisdom. So I've long loved that. Every healing center I've launched is always about circular leadership. It's always about how do we share this blessing and burden of leadership. And so this event, as I was playing with it, I was like, what is this called? The name's so important. So it is called the Wisdom Collective, which is a play on collective wisdom. And it is a partly online, partly in-person here in Costa Rica offering. We're only accepting 12 men, and to honor that ancient indigenous wisdom of the sacred number of 12, as well as the clinical wisdom of you can only have so many people and still keep it really real, authentic, and vulnerable. So it's going to be 12 blessed men that are going to gather. And the idea is basically to have men supporting each other and being open and being vulnerable. And there's 4 waves to the program. In a quick nutshell, the first one is simply about building the container, getting to know each other, learning some of the basics of how to be more conscious with language, emotion, support, all of these things. The second wave, which is really the depth of it, is where each man will get an opportunity to be supported by the collective wisdom of the group and step into the love light, step into a space where they are really given the attention and attunement that most men don't get ever, especially at an emotional level. The third wave of how to bring that all together and what does that mean for their families, their wives, their kids, their businesses, whatever it is. And the fourth wave being coming down to Costa Rica to complete it all in an in-person experiential with a somatic work, ceremonial work. And it really is about bringing men into a higher place of consciousness. And again, we help wake up 12 great men, how that disseminates and moves into the world. So that's the Wisdom Collective, and I'm soft launching it now. It's going to start in a few months, and so I'll share more soon on all of my, as I'm getting past my elder millennial status into more cool tech guy status. Work in process. So yeah, very, very excited to share the Wisdom Collective with the world and see who are the men that want to step up for that.
Dr. Jesse Hanson, host of Lead with Heart, Bridging Modern Science with Ancient Wisdom.
Still. Well, I'm not sure if that is my computer or Donna's, but in the case it is Donna's, I will talk because screen freezes are awkward things these days. The Wisdom Collective. Yep, I think that was Donna. All right, I'll take over. Okay. Well, I believe Donna was about to bring us home. So for that, I'm just going to say thank you. I loved it. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. You want to pop them up now. I had a great time. I hope you guys did. I love talking about this stuff. I can go on for way too long. So I will leave it at just a great thank you and much love to Donna Bond. I absolutely love her. We just met not even a year ago, and we've just found a great collegiate collaborative support. And I also want to shout out to the people behind the scenes that make all this tech stuff happen. It's not easy. If you ask me, it's not easy. So I believe that at this point, I think we're about a minute away from wrapping. So I do wonder, does anyone else want to shout out or any questions? If not, put them up here. Okay, would love to hear on how men are waking up or not. Thank you. Well, my perspective on men waking up is that I feel like partly through modern science and more men starting to read things that I've been reading the last long time, they are starting to realize that this whole machismo, tough guy, don't show any emotions is somehow the right way to be. They're starting to realize that that is a fallacy and that is actually not only spiritually, emotionally not true, but is also not scientifically doesn't hold water anymore, this whole approach. And when I work with men, that is where I really lovingly wrestle with them right away.
Oh boy, we're having internet challenges today, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. Okay, there's Jesse. He's back. Keep going, Jesse. Tell us about the men waking up.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. No, I'm not sure we're back. That's all that matters. So yeah, just to say that my closing thought on that one is to say that is often the rough tussle that I will have with a lot of men when I work with them, is simply to acknowledge this whole way of suppressing your emotions actually is not healthy. It's not cool. It doesn't actually help us evolve in hardly any ways. Maybe there are a few times where it is appropriate to hold it all in, and yet when that's the de facto setting and that's happening all the time, it just brings so much pain, and it brings misdirected sideways coping mechanisms that we see all over, including on the show Intervention, as well as on Bay Street and Wall Street, the coke and hookers phenomenon. There's so many ways in which men are malprocessing their emotions sideways because they simply had a space like this. They haven't been educated. They were trained from young. This is what you do. This is how you are. Super bad. And blessed be, the science is also here to show us that's bass backwards. That is the opposite of emotional intelligence. That's the opposite of neurological and spiritual health.
Yes.
So hopefully more men are waking up. Hopefully some men are watching this and listening, and the Wisdom Collective is going to help move that forward, and everything we're
Jesse,
doing.
they don't have a choice, really, right? Because we are at the most epic time in the history of humanity where the vibration is rising on the planet, and everything that is in discord or out of resonance with that is gonna come up. It has to. So we can get on board, all of us, and we can do our inner work, and we can learn and grow and evolve in a loving, compassionate container of acceptance and open-heartedness, or we can do it the hard way, right? And, I'm 100% Italian. I'm a little thick-headed. I've had to do it the hard way. But now I know there are so many dividends to receive when we have the courage to open our hearts and soften our minds and be invited into the places of the unknown that we haven't been yet, that we inherently and innately know how to navigate anyway.
So
well, tell us again, how do we find you if we would like to do some work with you, and where do I see Lead with Heart?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much everything through the website that's been popping up there. Hanson Healing is my own personal website. I am working on getting the site published fully for the Wisdom Collective. That can be found there. And yeah, that's really the easiest way to find me. And mentalhealth.com is great. That's not a direct connect to me, but it's a great source of resources. And that's something we're going to be building over the next few years to make even more support for people out there. And Lead with Heart you can find it on my website as well. And highly encourage you guys to watch Donna's episodes. Beautiful, powerful way that you showed up. And there's lots of other great leader stories on there. And I love something you said, just to close on. You said the exploration of the inner landscape of success. I really love that. That hit home for me. If that's exactly what it is, a lot of times like, yeah, tell me about all your successes. How many businesses have you run? No, tell me what happened when you were a child. Tell me what happened when you fell down and put your face in the mud, and like, how'd you get out of there? It's way more intriguing to me.
Yes, and way more important. Well, everyone, we are so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in, for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Jesse Hanson. It's my honor and privilege to be with you. We're going to close our space in the same way that we always do. So we just ask that the light be sent up ahead for everyone who is walking the path of healing, whether they're aware of it or not. We are so grateful for the opportunity to come together to soften our minds and open our hearts. We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between any of us and the spirit world. We are grateful, and we say thank you. We are now closing this show with love, in love, for love, by love, as love. Thank you, everyone.